Okay, now you should be able to record. Yeah.
Yes, it's done. You can continue. Aranza, do you have any question?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were going to start. I'm going to let you guys ask, and then probably I'm going to ask my question because I'm just like gathering all my thoughts together.
Okay, so I have a quick question about the first thing that you were mentioning about colonialism. I mean, I know why you don't consider this conflict as colonialism. I personally also think the same thing as you. However, I would like to know if you have considered to classify this phenomenon as apartheid, because of the things that you apartheid, because of
Apartheid.
Yeah, apartheid. All right, because of the things that you were also describing about how some Palestinian people are not able to have their own possessions, or and like all of the discrimination that they are actually having from institutions and many governments. And I don't know if you actually would consider to classify this phenomenon as apartheid. What would you think about that?
Right. So apartheid is a very specific term, right? It means a government policy of racial segregation. So it has to be based on ethnic lines, and it has to be government led. In that respect, within Israel, there is no apartheid. Arab citizens are not separated in any level. They are representative in every part of life, in any state institution. There's discrimination, there's racism. Those things exist in Mexico. Those things exist in any other country. So, I mean, they should be corrected. Not enough is being done probably to integrate the Arab minority better. And there is a lot of unjustified discrimination and hateful rhetoric against them from radical, but not even like necessarily that radical people, like parts of the Jewish community. But it's not apartheid. If we're talking about the West Bank, we have to consider the way that it's divided, right? So we have A, B, and C territories. Territory A and Territory B have civilian rule by the Palestinian Authority. And B, you have military rule by the by the Israelis, but they don't have civil control. And in those areas, there is no real Jewish presence. So there is no real way to discriminate between two peoples because there aren't two peoples existing there. And so you can't really say that there's apartheid there. The one part where I understand where those arguments are coming from is Area C. In Area C, Israel has military and civilian control. You have both Palestinians and Jews in the settlements, and there is very clear parallel legal systems that govern Palestinians and Jews. Jews are controlled by normal Israeli law. All regular Israeli legislation applies to them the same as it would to me in Haifa, which is not in the Palestinian territories in any way. Palestinians are ruled by military control, by the military government and authorities there. It's a totally different legal system. They're treated completely differently. They have to apply for different permissions, which they never get. They're discriminated against on every level in Area C when it comes to construction, when it comes to political representation, when it comes to protests, when it comes to the roads that they can use and where they can live. It's difficult for me to say that it's apartheid just because it's such a different situation, right? It's not within a country per se. There is no real, Israel hasn't annexed it. So Israel hasn't claimed full control over Area C officially. And the Palestinians don't control it either. As I said, it's a really murky legal area. So if I can call it apartheid 100%, I can't. But to be honest, there is no difference when it comes to the fact that two populations are being treated completely differently, and that's based on their identity, if they're Jewish or if they're Palestinian. So to me, the situation there is morally wrong. I don't have to call it apartheid to say that it should change and that it's not legitimate. I think that's my answer.
So I have another question before we go to the last thing that Mara has to say. Um, do you think that probably Israel or some other part of the conflict, some other actor actually of the conflict, is having another kind of tool to not just to be recognized by the international community, but to gather more power to finally end the conflict? Like, for example, we are also studying the war in Yemen. And I know that Israel is not having like many power into the conflict, but I mean, the state is actually looking to get into the war, so he can get into the region alliances and everything that it is actually lacking to probably gather this power that he is lacking of. And I don't know if you share this thought or if you have something to comment in there. I mean, do you think that the actors are actually looking for another kind of tool to have more power over the other, or like why would you think that they are looking to finally get somewhere else in this conflict?
It's a very interesting question. I think I understood, if I understood correctly, you're basically asking what can the different actors do in order to gain kind of more power and influence in this power dynamic. So it's very important, to understand that inherently there is an imbalance of power. You know, Israel is a sovereign nation recognized by the entire international community. Palestinians are not, and they're under kind of the grace of Israel, which is occupying them. And so you have an inherent imbalance of power here that it's making it very difficult for the Palestinians to gain any sort of say over their future, which is really contributing to how the conflict is playing out. I think the Palestinians are trying their best on the legal avenue, trying to get recognition in international organizations, trying to sue Israel in the International Criminal Court, even though Israel is not a party to the Rome Treaty, so it doesn't really have. It's doubtful that the International Criminal Court has a mandate to investigate very thoroughly the situation as a whole, even though it said that it is already going to investigate it, some of it. And then I think the other tool that the Palestinians are trying to have is economic, right? When we're talking about sanction or boycotts, which is something that Israel is resisting very strongly. And it's, on some levels, I think Israel is trying to label it as anti-Semitic. I would definitely say that I don't think, depending on, inherently, I don't think sanctions against Israel are anti-Semitic, even if Israel is a Jewish country. There are anti-Semitic actors that are promoting sanctions against Israel. And I think that that's definitely helped Israel kind of paint the entire boycott and sanctions movement as anti-Semitic, because there are a lot of bad faith actors within those kind of calls, like Hamas and other terrorist groups and different kind of activists that don't even recognize that Israel should ever exist in any sort of way, and they don't really care about what happens to all the Jews there, which is anti-Semitic to kind of deny Jews' right to self-determination. So I think in that respect, probably economics and international recognition are the most powerful tools that the Palestinians can have to get some sort of leverage. And I think they can definitely pursue them more actively, for sure. The problem is that whenever they do, Israel threatens them with one thing or another, and Israel has eventually like military superiority and also economic superiority, and it's very, very difficult when you're being kind of held in that way. For Israel, I don't think that Israel has. I think the one thing that Israel is trying to do is actually diplomatically advanced relations with other Arab countries. Up until now, Israel hasn't had relations with a lot of Arab countries because of the Palestinian conflict. There was a policy of no normalization of relations until a Palestinian state is established based on the Arab Initiative, but that's kind of been abandoned ever since the Abraham Accords. So Israel is gaining more recognition, and I think Israel is hoping that by gaining that recognition and being embraced into the region, without having to deal with the Palestinian issue, it will be able to lessen the pressure on it to do something about the Palestinians. And it really wants to kind of maintain sole decision-making power about when and how it does anything with the Palestinians or for the Palestinians. So yeah, I think those are kind of the main tools that both of the actors are using. But as I said, I think eventually what will probably determine it is military dynamics as well. I think in terms of if Israel decides that security-wise, it would be better to establish a state because it's just too dangerous and unsustainable to de facto occupy and control 3-4 million Palestinians. I think at that moment, Israel would probably be like, okay, we need to do something. And actually, there were some interesting conversations over the summer, because of the rise in terrorism in the territories. A lot of Israelis were like, where is the Palestinian Authority? All of a sudden, they were all fans of the Palestinian Authority because the Palestinian Authority helps Israel fight terrorism and actually does it very effectively. And that's why there's a lot of bitterness by Palestinians against the Palestinian Authority, because it's kind of seen as a security contractor for Israel. And a lot of Israelis were all of a sudden like, wait, maybe we should be more supportive of the Palestinian Authority. Maybe we should give it more legitimacy, treat it better, give it some benefits. So for example, you could see that Israel gave more work permits to Palestinians to work in Israel. Israel was giving more budgets, being less provocative when it came to settlement building or expansion, stuff like that. So I think as long as that calculus is there, whatever in Israel's national security interest, that will make Israel change its calculus. Because for Jews, as I said, like the Jewish majority, they're like, what is going to make me safe? What is going to keep me safe? How am I going to stay alive and maintain my home here in Israel? That's what people care about, staying alive and having their home safe.
Okay, well, thanks very much. And for the last question, and as a way to summarize, having already talked about, well, some of the important factors that contributed to the development of this conflict, if you would have to make like a bullet list of all the elements that someone needs to take into consideration when analyzing and understanding the current conflict, which would you consider to be like the central elements that someone needs to take into consideration, like in a crucial way, in order to fully comprehend what is happening right now?
History is one. Security and the changing kind of security dynamics, not just between Israel and the Palestinians, but regionally. So talking about Iran, talking about Syria, talking about Russia, talking about America, a lot of different actors that are involved by proxy. So history, security, and psychology. I think it's really, really important to kind of take into consideration what's going on in people's minds and why is it that they hold the position that they hold? Why do they otherize or demonize the other? Why is there such a need to cling to their groups, and where is all of this trauma coming from? And what is it that you need to do in order to change people's behavior eventually? Because this is what you want. You want people in Israel and Palestine to think differently about this conflict in order to bring it to a different place. And I think this is sometimes ignored, especially because I think because of the power dynamics and because of the fact that Israel is powerful and the Palestinians are in a much weaker position and are kind of the victim in the overall scheme, people see it in very black and white terms, and they tend to demonize Israel in the same way that maybe a lot of Israelis demonize the Palestinians. And if you don't take Israel and Israel's concerns seriously, you're not going to get anywhere with talking to Israel, because you're basically going to be perceived as someone who doesn't care about what happens to Israelis. Then why should they care about what you think? And it's a very natural psychological reaction as well. It's like, if you don't care about me, why should I care about you? So yeah, I would say those are the like main three factors that I would analyze.
I think that's very, very interesting. I have never, well, actually, in our last course, we had a professor that talked to us about neuroscience, and he was like telling us that it's a branch that in social sciences and social studies must be taken into consideration. And well, thanks a lot for your time for the interview. I don't know if any of my teammates have any other question, or we could finish.
Aranza, you haven't asked anything.
It's okay. I'm sorry, but it was just really an enriching experience to hear you and also hear the questions of my teammates. I just wanted to say that it was really interesting that you actually mentioned psychology, because I think it's a real important thing in social sciences, and as studying international relations, we tend to see like countries just like these invisible I don't know, invisible things that we know they exist, but we don't actually think, well, we know it, but we don't tend to think that people is what makes countries. So I think that's the thing I'm taking of all this interview. I mean,
Yeah.
everything was extremely valuable, but yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for your time, and I'm extremely grateful that we had this interview with you.
No, thank you so much for making the time to kind of, listen to a different perspective and to kind of really dedicate your time to learning about this conflict. It has nothing to do with Mexico. Mexico has its own issues that you could, kind of feel like, fuck everybody else. I don't care about it. So it's very nice. And by the way, on your last point about psychology, it's a growing field in international relations now, about empathy in international relations and about trust in international relations, which are inherently psychological concepts, but people are applying them in understanding how do you promote and groom these kind of emotions in people that are in conflict when it comes to an international perspective. And I would definitely kind of look into that. I studied it at King's, and there's a lot of research that is actually being done about it. So I would definitely look into it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, well, one last comment about the psychology that you mentioned, because I mean, I also think it is a very important point to take into consideration. And I was studying last semester as well, behavioral economics and sociológico, ¿cómo se dice?
Sociological.
Yeah, like
yeah. You did it right.
And I mean, for the last thing, I would actually would like to thank you for all of your time and your emails and this hour that you have already had the disposition to be here with us. It is very, very valuable for us, and your comments are going to be very valuable for our investigation and for all of the class as well. Because if you don't mind, we would also like to show your interview with the rest of the class. And if in the future some of our classmates wants to hear something about another expert in the Middle East, if you don't mind, I would also love to share your contact. And
yeah, be discreet. I don't know that I need 100 students kind of sending me emails. I have a full-time job, so
yeah.
but sure, if anybody needs some help and you think it's right to kind of connect us, then reach out to me, and if it sounds okay, then I'm happy to talk to other people, and definitely say hi to Karen for me. Of course, I know Karen. She's a good friend. I was in Mexico City earlier this year and we hung out a bunch. So yeah, I love Karen. She's
great. Thank you very much.
Now, taking advantage of this little thankful and social thing that happened at the end of the interview, I also would like to ask if it's okay if I connect with you in LinkedIn. I'm really interested in King's College for my master's. So probably in the future, I will reach out to you so you can tell me your experience in peace studies in King's College. So
yeah, totally. Please, all of you are more than welcome to add me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy. It's my name, Dan Zafrir, so very easy to find.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So then we can, in attention to your time, we can just finish this conversation, and thank you again. We are extremely grateful for your time, and have an excellent day and week and month and life.
Thanks.
An excellent night. Bye.
Thanks very much.
Take care.
You too.